90s Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, James Dunstone. Today, very special guest, who's one half of one of the most popular tag teams in WWE. And he is formerly known as Tucker, but today we know him as Levi Cooper. Levi, how are you doing today?
What's up, brother? I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good, thanks. Just making the most of the weather and just chilling out. And yeah, just going to spend the next hour having a good time talking to you.
Yes, sir.
I see you're in the games room.
Oh, yeah, baby. Love this room.
Yeah. Is that a Pokemon picture I see in the back?
Yep. It's all the Eevees. That's my wife's favorite. We actually that's a 2000 piecer. We built that during lockdown.
Yeah. It's that looks great, and cool. So I suppose we'll jump into the wrestling then. And fan of wrestling growing up?
Yeah. I grew up during the Attitude Era, so I've obviously watched it with my friends. During maybe from 98 to 2002, I would say was the time period with which I watched wrestling the most growing up. Stone Cold was my favorite at the time. Just so cool, man. It's like he just captured the essence of that time period so well, and he just he had such a good what would you say, like emotional presence, I guess would be the way I'd put it. Like,
Yeah.
And especially once I started with the company and I was watching a lot of different wrestling. I hadn't really watched his WCW stuff very much growing up. And so to see him and like, well, man, he's doing more things and he's like actually kind of a better technical wrestler during this time period. But then you see him kind of evolve into the Stone Cold and how he's able to get over and the way that he does that. As I kind of learned more about the business and started to really understand and look back on the way that he captured me in my youth. That was another like cool, way to sort of go back in time. I remember in acting class one time, we just drew, one of the exercises was, because we were working on sort of like transfers of emotion, basically. So finding things in your real life to sort of put on top of, some script or words that you get and you have to say. And so we took classic wrestling promos and I randomly drew the Stone Cold King of the Ring promo. Nice. And I remember being very excited that I got that promo, like, yes, this is going to be great. And just, kind of then watching it a bunch of times and sort of thinking about how he, I'm sure he was just in the moment, but thinking about like, okay, what's he sort of feeling in this moment and how's he delivering those lines. It was cool, man. I really enjoyed that piece of it. Through my high school years, I didn't watch as much wrestling. I was pretty focused on trying to become a Division I athlete, and I spent a lot of my mental effort in school and in wrestling and football, amateur wrestling. So, I wasn't as up to date then. I went one time to a live event. I think it was 2003, I want to say. Kane versus The Undertaker was the main event. That was pretty awesome here in Portland. I went to Money in the Bank in 2012 when it was in Arizona, when I was going to school at Arizona State. Dolph Ziggler won, I remember. And so that was pretty awesome, and I remember just kind of like, whoa, this, because it'd been a while since I'd been in a wrestling show at that point. And I think I was 21 and just being like, man, this is awesome. Like this is the energy in this place is pretty incredible. And like, I haven't been to one of these, in a long time. This is, I like this.
Cool. And I'm guessing like attending these shows, especially like Money in the Bank, that drove you into joining WWE. So how did that come about?
Yeah, well, I sort of got, recruited by Gerald Briscoe. He was, when he was working as a talent scout, and he was mostly working like the amateur wrestling circuit in America and perhaps internationally as well. And so, he introduced himself to me December, I want to say, of my senior year in college in Las Vegas at the Cliff Keen wrestling tournament, Cliff Keen Las Vegas Invitational. And we just exchanged information, and he told me, when I'm done with college, I still had maybe 4 months left, to contact him, and we'll try to set up tryout. I graduated in May, and then in June, I went out to Tampa, Florida. It was the last tryout they actually had in Tampa before they moved to the Performance Center in July. And ultimately, I actually got called on my birthday that year, July 24th, and they told me they were going to hire me. And then the hiring process took about 6 months, and I started in January 2014.
Awesome. And I would presume Dusty was still running the show down in NXT during your time there. So sadly, he passed away, I think, a year after this. But what was your interaction like with Dusty?
I mean, absolute legend, right? Incredible to, he was a special guy, It was very grateful, very thankful that I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to spend, any time, let alone, get to kind of pick his brain for a year. I was still in my very infancy stages of professional wrestling, and so I didn't have a deep enough knowledge, I think, to really get all of the benefit that I could have gotten from him, just because I think in my first year there, I didn't even know the right questions to be asking all the time. But still, how can you not listen to every word this guy says, right? And then kind of the way that he would give examples, and he would always say, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, and then sometimes he would just tell a story and you wouldn't know what was true and what was not. And obviously, like, he would exaggerate in the story, but you didn't know, like, which parts he was exaggerating about, right? And it was this lesson showing you, like, even though I'm going over the top right now, like, you don't know which parts of these over the top things I'm not telling the truth about. And that's the work, right? That's the business. So, yeah, man, he's just, and obviously he's a very special human being. So yeah, it was, just learned a lot of incredible lessons from him, and got to see, also, I think I probably learned more from what he just telling other people and watching him coach, others, people that were on television, more so than some of the things that he taught me, and just watching the lessons that he would hand out to people, and, how he kind of helped to refine their, like, I remember when Finn Balor came in, it was pretty early on. And when he first got to the Performance Center, and, that's a difficult environment to cut promos. And, like, I remember being incredibly nervous when I first got there, more so than I've ever been in front of an audience, in a room of, like, my colleagues and William Regal and Dusty Rhodes. Like, this is, like, I'm cutting, it's a very nerve-wracking environment. So anyways, he, like, Finn cut his promo one time, and then Dusty told him, hey, put your jacket on. This time when you talk, I want you to just take off your jacket and your tie. Say the exact same words that you were just saying, but do it like that. And just how much of a profound difference that little thing made from the first time that he cut the promo to the second time. And obviously he was kind of just forcing him to do something with his hands and his body so that he wouldn't be unsure of what to do with those things, right? Or just like, and the simplicity of that direction, but the profound impact that it has, and understanding that, like, you don't have to give a bunch of big critiques to somebody to really make a big impact on them. You can just a little thing right there. And it's like, man, like, it seems so simple, right? But at the same time, it's like, well, it's just somebody who has such a deep knowledge of people, right? And of how to speak and how to sort of, like, get that, whatever it is you're looking to get out of a person, out of them.
Yeah, that's true. I've spoken to quite a few of your former colleagues who was in NXT, such as Wesley Blake and Connor from the Ascension and such. And every one of them said that with Dusty, you could just pick these little things you could fine tune, and like you said, it'd be the smallest thing, but it would just make such a big difference in the way you go forward, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, you just nailed it. He was just one of a kind. I mean, not special is not enough of a word. He was as unique of a person. I mean, obviously his performance speaks for itself, but his ability to inspire confidence and critique with simplicity was unlike any person that I've met before. And I've been around some pretty good coaches in different realms.
Yeah, and yeah, sadly missed. And so after this, you made your television debut against Baron Corbin. So what was it like making your TV debut, and how much pressure was there on yourself, or did you just treat it like another day?
I mean, definitely a little bit of pressure. I think at the time, I'm not sure how long I'd been there, but I think it was close to 2 years.
Yeah.
Before I had that match. So, I mean, it wasn't long and it didn't have a lot of things in it, but obviously I was going to try to show like, well, I belong in this ring and give me longer next time, please, yeah, definitely nervous for sure. That was the first time that I really done anything on TV, right? Or any kind of like stuff with the cameras. Up to that point, I'd been out in Full Sail before, I guess, as a Rosebud and different things. So at least I had a little bit of a taste of what it was like, being out there in front of a crowd. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of self-pride, I have a lot of, that kind of like, I want to do well for myself because like I care a lot about doing well, and I think that probably goes back to amateur wrestling and sort of just like, it's tough to get good at amateur wrestling if you're not sort of brutally honest with yourself at times, and have those kind of like realistic conversations with yourself about where you need to improve and how you need to do that, and also which areas you're good at and where you should highlight. So, I think that was an important kind of step on that journey, right? To at least let me know like, okay, well, you're headed in the right direction. You don't need to maybe make a bunch of changes, just kind of keep doing what you're doing and kind of stay the course, and you'll get your opportunity.
Awesome. And how's Baron Corbin to work with? Because he gets a lot of hate online, but every time I see him, I do think he's a bit of he's underrated worker. So how is Baron Corbin to work, and how was your relationship with him in general?
Yeah, he was. I mean, honestly, everybody that I worked with there, by and large, is very good at what they do, and that's why they're there. As somebody who came like me from not a wrestling background, yeah, he was very polished. I mean, in that instance, obviously, I knew what my job was, and so I'm not going to be. I mean, it's, we're having a 90-second match or maybe like a 2-minute segment or something. I know I'm obviously not going to have a lot of offense. And so the conversation is going to be, hey, like, what do you need from me, or what do you need me to do, essentially? And yeah, I never had any like issues with Baron or anything like that. I think he's a good guy. He's a family man, and he's obviously pretty good at his job because, because of the positions that he's been put in, and the people that he's gotten to believe in him. Obviously, like you said, that whatever you kind of, I mean, if you don't like him, that's sort of the point, right? Like he's a human. Like you're not supposed to like him. It's like people forget because there's so many cool bad guys around that like, well, it's okay for somebody to objectively be good, but then you're just like, there's just something about that prick that I don't like. It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point of it. It's like, you're supposed to want to see the bad guy get beat up and then be mad when he doesn't. Like, that's a part of the story. So, and I think he's very good at that, obviously. So, that's what I would attribute it to. I mean, and I think he does feel this way. And I would, if I was him, I would feel pleased about people disliking me on the internet if I was a bad guy on TV, and especially if I'm being booked, and in main event spots and stuff, then what am I like, Yeah, well, say what you want, dude. Like,
True. Cool. And after this, they paired you and Otis of heavy machinery. So, how did that process come about? You two being paired up?
yeah, so it was Matt Bloom's idea initially.
Yep.
Tensai,
Albert.
Big Albert, yep, all the names. Yeah, so I think Otis had been there for about 4 months or so, and was doing well. You know, he's wrestling in some openers, I think, and doing his Otis thing, getting over a little bit. And so Bloom basically said, "Hey, I'm gonna put you guys together." And we actually wrestled as heels the first time that we wrestled together. I remember it well. We were wrestling TM61.
Yeah.
Shane and Mikey, love those guys. And it was in Ocala, Florida, which the venue there is an outside hotel pavilion. So it's like a tent outside of a hotel. And this was
Oh,
like
wow.
late July or early August in Florida. So you talk about a scorcher, like
Yeah.
probably 95. So I don't know,
Oh,
that's probably close to 30 Celsius, I would guess.
yeah.
And the humidity, I don't know, in the 70s, I would guess, percentage wise. So I just remember us hugging each other before the match started. Like we did our entrance, we hug, and just being like, oh, that was one of the sweatiest hugs I've ever had. And we still got to wrestle 20 minutes after this. And I remember Otis saying, like, telling the story later on and saying, yeah, dude, I was dehydrated for like a day and a half. Like the next morning, I drank like a gallon of water on the way home. And the next morning, I still was, my pee was, yellow and brown. And it's like, yeah, bro, it was bad. And it was funny looking back on it now, of course. But I just remember being so sweaty and just like, ugh. And then the next weekend, we wrestled as baby faces, and it went pretty well. And obviously it stuck. And I've said this a lot, but I think there was a deep level of respect between us because we both have similar kind of small town blue collar upbringings. And we're both fairly high level amateur wrestling heavyweights. And that's heavyweights are kind of their own special breed of wrestler. So there was kind of this, level of like I guess, foundational level of understanding, that what needs to be, or, what's understood doesn't necessarily need to be talked about. And we're not going to kind of try to compare with each other. It's like, nah, you did that, I did this. We respect what each other's done. And now we're going to try to take over the world together. And then on top of that, we had a very real brotherhood, big brother, little brother relationship. And so, it became apparent to me pretty quickly that we had something that was going to work, that could work out.
Yeah.
If we could figure out kind of what the hook was going to be, then, we like each other, and there's a general, real camaraderie here that can't really be replicated.
Cool. And I mean, you were getting over so quickly in NXT, and the fans loved you. And not long after this, you got the call up to go to the main roster. So did that come as a bit of a shock to you, but like getting called up to the main roster before you actually won the tag team titles in NXT, or was you just so excited about moving up?
I mean, yes, it was a surprise. I think we had tagged together for about 2 years before we got called up. So, and about over a year of those, I would say, was us just making making the loop in Florida, doing the live events there. So, yeah, I mean, relative television time, I think we'd only been on TV for maybe like a year and 6 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little longer, because we made our debut at the Dusty Cup, but we weren't heavy machinery at the time. We were just Tucker and Otis. That was on Roddy Strong's debut. I'm not sure exactly when that was, but it was especially, well, interestingly, like we had both just, well, I had just gotten a raise recently, like within a week. So that was another piece where it was like, whoa, this is crazy. It was like that, like, that was just something, I guess, that was kind of, made it seem even more like, whoa, so what's happening here type of deal, but obviously there was something around, the six of us, and who knows exactly what the circumstances around our call up was, but yeah, I mean, I definitely remember being like, "Whoa, hey," like, very excited, and hey, I've been working for 5 years for this basically, and like, I feel like we're ready for this. I feel like in some ways, our act was more of a main roster act than it was an NXT act, just in terms of, sort of wrestling style, I guess you would say. To me, anyways. I mean, I think we were kind of theatrical and large, and the main roster sort of Hollywood in that regard, where NXT is maybe a little more Broadway, and it's kind of niche, nuance, and work rate potentially. So I had been thinking in my mind since probably that WrestleMania, before, hey, like, I think we have something good enough to potentially make it up there. So let's talk about, if that happens, how we kind of see that going down, because I think it's important. Well, it's just, especially at the time, it was my opinion that, what you've done in NXT, you can't expect for that to speak for you when you move up. Like, to me, I think maybe if you're in a highly concentrated market, then you could expect, 40 or 50% of the crowd to be network watchers and know who you are. But in some markets in America, Midwest, the South, like, I don't think you could expect that number to be higher than 15, 20% on any given, TV when if you're going through there for the first time and you've just come onto television. So to sort of consider, okay, well, how would I want my re-debut to look? And like, if I was going to start from scratch, what would that sort of look like, and how would we proceed doing that? We had those conversations before we got the call-ups, and I was fortunate that we had those, because I think that helped us be able to sort of navigate what can be pretty tricky waters in the first 6 months or so. I mean, it's always a little bit tricky, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of a wild ride, certainly. Getting called up and moving, that's such a bigger machine. You're in a different town every week. It's a new building. It's a lot of new people. You're talking about probably 400 new people or so, at least, if you're talking about, rosters and writers and producers and, executives, but also catering and production and, all of the other different departments that are kind of a big part of the medical, whatever it is, I can keep going and going. That I remember being a big, like, shock, or just kind of like, whoa, hey, there's a lot of new faces here. This is a really big thing. And you just come to respect, like, the production crew really is, to me, like, WWE's main differentiating factor. No, I'm not trying to disrespect or take anything away from the wrestling. The wrestling is great, a great product, but their ability, especially before the pandemic, to set up and tear down, 52 2 times a week, 52 weeks every year forever, and go all around the world, is second to none. I mean, there's not really any other company in any entertainment modicum that even comes close to touching them from that regard. So, just seeing that on a grand scale too, I just remember being like, wow, we're just like part of this giant machine, and that's cool, but it's also, it comes with a litany of other emotions too, right? There's definitely a higher level of pressure, and yeah, just kind of stress on your life.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when it comes to the call-ups, it's a mixed bag of success, I suppose. But your call-ups in particular, I think it was actually part of a group, because yourselves getting called up, and so was Lacey Ryan at the same time, EC3, and I think Laz, and
Nikki, and
Nikki, that's it, yeah.
Who was one other girl?
Was it Lacey Ryan? Yeah, Lacey Evans. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 6 of us.
That's right. And EC3 is someone I believe they truly dropped the ball with. And was it a shock to yourselves? Because I mean, I think he was basically given the one match against Moxley. Apparently, got heat over it because they said that Ambrose, as he was called at that time, got cheered or something like that. He said in an interview, Moxley. So, was you surprised how misused EC3 was? Because for me, EC3 was a potential main eventer. So, How shocked was you that he got wasted so much?
Yeah, shocked, very disappointed. At the time when we first got called up, me, Otis, and I, and EC3 and Spud, the four of us were riding together quite frequently
Oh, cool.
because we were all when we got called up, we didn't go to a brand until after WrestleMania, and so we were going to both shows, and Spud was going to both shows too because he was doing Raw, but he was also doing 205 Live. So the four of us, we would not everyone was going to both shows, obviously. So we were making those were usually long drives, like not regular live event drives, long ones. So point being, we became quite close, and I have profound respect for EC3. I think he's an incredible talent, and particularly his skills on the mic are I mean, he had the potential. If you would have gave him the opportunity to just be himself, I think within a 3-4 month period, he becomes top 3 guy on the mic in the company, in my opinion. Like, he's that talented. He's that good in a litany of situations. You don't even have to necessarily put him in a great situation if you give him the mic. I think that's his main tool, right? I mean, that's the tool that, no, not taking anything away from him as an in-ring performer, but in my opinion, the thing that will really gets him over is his ability to speak on the mic and then back that up in the ring, not vice versa. And so to not give him that opportunity is, it's like, I mean, obviously it seems like in some instances, people certainly aren't always put in the best situation to succeed. I'll just say that, and is it worse than that sometimes? Potentially, yeah. But, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense, really.
Yeah,
you got to give the guy a chance, but I think it's, Eric Young, another guy, right? Eric Young's the man.
Yeah.
Like, he's tearing it up in NXT, and you just you just chop his legs off immediately. Like, well, what are you guys doing,
Yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, Levi. I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, but what was your thought, if you did watch it, what was your thoughts on Karrion Kross losing to Jeff Hardy? I mean, Jeff Hardy, and I would imagine you was a big fan of Jeff Hardy as well, but Karrion Kross being the NXT champion and on his Raw debut, losing and in quick fashion as well. If you did watch it, what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it. I obviously, caught it on social media. I mean, par for the course.
Yeah.
That's what I think about it.
Yeah.
Par for the course. I think it's right up, I don't know, just, I like that guy. I personally, I've met him a few different times and had some good conversations with him. And, obviously he's got an incredible act. And so I don't, it doesn't make any sense to me, but it's not surprising.
Yeah. And I mean, you said that he was riding both EC3 and he seems to be doing a good job in ROH at the minute. And with your 90 days up, I imagine you'd like to tangle with him in ROH, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. I'd like to get it on with old EC, my boy, my old friend. No doubt. Like I said, I have a high level of respect for him, obviously, seeing some of the incredible work that he's doing, not just in ROH, but also some of his own personal work. Like I said, a lot of respect for him, but, would also like to beat him up and take a little bit of what he's got, make a name for myself a little bit, but like I said, he's a friend of mine, but inside the ring, he could be a little bit of an enemy. I think that would be quite an enjoyable experience for the both of us. Well, maybe not for him, but it would definitely be enjoyable for me.
Cool. And you've made a few trips to Saudi, and there was the infamous one to Crown Jewel and the delays with the planes. What happened? Because we hear mixed reports. Did you get stuck behind Saudi? What was the issue?
Well, yes, I've had conflicting reports as well, but yeah, I mean, we were stuck for a day, basically 24 hours or so. We do the show. We go to what's called like executive arrivals, which is essentially, like whatever, not the main airport, but its own kind of separate terminal for private jets and whatever. So, and I've gone through that on two separate occasions for myself. I did 2 weeks in Saudi Arabia and worked the tryout for WWE before Greatest Royal Rumble, and actually had an incredible experience over there in Jeddah. I loved it. It was great. I had such a good time in those 2 weeks. And then, went back to Jeddah the second time and it was all good. And then the third time when we went to Riyadh. You could definitely tell Riyadh was a different place than Jeddah, a little, little less laxed, definitely more of an uptight place. Jeddah's definitely, it's a beach town. It's on the Red Sea. And you could tell they're trying to encourage tourism there a little bit. More. So anyways, we sit in the executive arrivals area for, maybe 4 or 5 hours. Then we're allowed to get on the plane. We're on the plane, I don't know, for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. But all we hear is something about documentation. We can't take off. So we get back off the plane. Then we sit in the executive arrivals for another couple of hours. I think we're waiting on the buses. Then we go to another hotel and we wait in the hotel for, maybe 12 hours. I don't know. I mean, I know when I got to the hotel, I immediately slept for like 7 hours. I was so tired, because I hadn't gotten any good sleep since the show. So at this point, I think I've been up for like 36 hours or something. And, I'm tired. So we sleep, we eat, we get back on the bus, we go back and, we get on not too much trouble on that second day. I know there was a group because we were trying to land straight into SmackDown coming from Saudi on that trip. And SmackDown ended up being real shorthanded. And they sent a private jet with some guys on it before we all left, trying to get some people to SmackDown that ultimately I think didn't arrive in time from what I understand. And then I do remember, so I guess in the day that had gone by, they moved our plane from the executive arrivals over to, the main kind of terminal area. And those places are pretty far away from each other, but nobody had told us that. So we get through the executive arrivals and, instead of getting straight on the plane, we get on these, kind of like people movers basically, right? Like they're not buses, but they're sort of buses and you stand up on and whatever, at an airport. And, so there's like 3 different ones. We take off and all of a sudden, maybe 2 minutes later, we're just sort of in the middle of the desert and it's dark and there's nothing, around. And
wow.
Obviously now knowing they're just taking us to where our plane is, it's no big deal. But I remember people being like, what's going on here, dude? Like, why are we just like in the middle of nowhere? What's happening after obviously we've been through, this all kind of other ordeal. I remember kind of thinking to myself, or like early on in it, I don't think this is going to become anything like they'll try to mess up, SmackDown maybe, but I don't think this is going to be long enough to become like an international thing. I don't think they want that kind of press. But it was weird, right? I mean, looking back on it, you kind of feel like you were a pawn to some extent, and obviously no one knows what the truth of the matter is, as exactly what happened. But I think something interesting happened, and it wasn't an issue with our the airline that we were flying with or the airplane or anything like that. As far as I knew from there, when I talked to those guys, they said, hey, everything's good on our end, like we should be able to go. It's on the Saudi end is the reason why we're not leaving. We're not getting clearance. So, I don't know, make of that what you will. That's what I know.
Yeah, very crazy. And you had
my wife was pissed. My wife was more pissed than me for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Cool. And you've had a great run on SmackDown, challenged for the tag titles a couple of times, and you seem to be so close to getting these tag belts. And then the Otis Mandy Rose story came along, and it was a great storyline. Everyone really loved it, and I know that Otis and Mandy had this thing on social media for like I think it was like a year or even, and it was just like organically just became a storyline. So how was it working this storyline? Because it was prominently featured on SmackDown.
It was awesome, man. It was fun. It was very fun to work, you know. Obviously, I mean, just like anything else in the wrestling world, but I think particularly for that story, or especially for it, you know, man, having the pandemic happen when it happened sucked,
Yeah,
because God, that would have been an amazing moment at WrestleMania. Not that it wasn't, but like just imagine that ultimately happening in front of, you know, and them being able to take their time and draw it out and get everybody, you know, on board for it, and then they finally kiss. I think it becomes even bigger than it was. Yeah, it was fun to work on, man. You know, fun to do some different stuff. Obviously, you know, for me and Otis, that was always kind of the type of things that we wanted to do. You know, that I think that gave an opportunity for our relationship to shine a little bit, and at least, you know, I like to think that some of my spots there, as sort of, you know, best friend, best big brother, that, you know, I was able to sort of get that across, and have at least some people appreciate that, you know, that's sort of who I was, and, you know, that they could take maybe some inspiration for pumping up their own friends, and you know, doing those kinds of things. It was obviously, you know, Mandy and Otis and Sonia and Dolph and Bobby all are incredible. The writer on that, she's no longer with the company, Andrea. She'd come from television before, and it was obvious because, you know, just the way that that story progressed, especially when she had kind of full control over it up through WrestleMania. It was awesome. You know, it was just the ups and downs, right? You go from this, what should be a pretty exhilarating moment at, um, on Valentine's Day, you know, and big letdown, and we're able to make it, you know, very intriguing all the way up through WrestleMania, and we have this great WrestleMania moment. And then, you know, obviously, ultimately, there was a bit of mismanagement as it pertained to the end of that story.
yeah,
You know, and that's disappointing because, you know, to me, I think that hurts maybe the fans' potential buy-in on another long-term story of that kind, you know, that kind of has an effect across the board potentially. And, you know, I mean, I think at the time they didn't want either of them to be heels, and that was maybe the reason why things went the way they went. Obviously, Otis is a heel now, so,
yeah.
you know, maybe we have him turn on her, but you know, it is what it is. But it was incredibly fun to work on that, man. One of the highlights of my time for sure. You know, just because, you know, doing things different than wrestling a match is always, not that I don't love wrestling matches. Of course I do love wrestling matches, but, you know, having the opportunity to explore a little bit creatively, and you know, challenge yourself a little bit. For me, those are things that I really enjoy, and kind of feel like I thrive on.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems to be a common thing that WWE doesn't follow through on stories because obviously Otis won the Money in the Bank, and I mean, he had the portable lunchbox, which was great, and there was rumors that he was going to end up cashing it in for the tag team titles. It never happened, and he's got put into this feud with Miz and Morrison, and it was a great little program. Had some great matches. But then the odd thing was they drafted you to Raw before the conclusion of the story, and then they had you turn a notice. And I don't know, I can't. Well, I know that you wasn't happy about getting split up, but even after they split, they never put you in the program in a feud with each other. It was just like splitting you for the sake of splitting you, and it was such a wasted opportunity. I don't know if you wanted to turn heel, but even if you did turn heel, they never followed it up with a feud. So how disappointed was you with the way that worked out?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that was basically the end of my career with WWE, right? So very, that's my one regret is hitting Otis with the briefcase and not like, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I would have just said no, um, because I didn't, and part of it's on me for not like really pressing hard enough to get the proper answers, before that. But also the way that that went down, I wasn't even booked that day, and I got a call at 1 o'clock to come to the arena. Because I was in town because we did the El Gran Gordo thing on SmackDown, right? So I'm going to
Yeah.
golf on Sunday in Florida, and I get a text from travel at like 1 o'clock, call times 2. Hey, we need you at the arena. I'm like, all right, well, I'm out golfing, so I'm gonna be late, So I get there at 3. I don't get told what I'm doing until probably like 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and the rest is history, right? And so, like I said, I mean, I'll take the ownership of I should have said no, and I didn't, and I think that basically I don't know. My best guess is they just needed to get the briefcase off him, so they used that. And I think initially there was potentially a plan for me to go on Raw Underground, from what I understand, but
Right.
sort of between the time that you just mentioned where I got moved to Raw and the time we finished the program, Raw Underground wasn't around anymore. It had gotten scrapped as a segment during that time. And so, I mean, like I said, ultimately, I guess I wasn't prepared enough for them to split us up, and I wasn't able to, I guess, make anything of it. But by the same breath, I've watched plenty of turns before, and if you're going to have a guy turn on his partner, and then the next Monday he's wrestling on main event and getting beaten, then that probably means you didn't have a lot of belief in that guy. So, that's obviously me that I'm speaking about. And yeah, I mean, I wish, because I love my friend and I want my friend to be as successful as he can, irregardless of what happens to me. This is a much bigger dream for Otis, for Nico, than it is for Levi. And as someone who I genuinely love, I don't want to mess that up for my brother. I want him to be as successful as possible, right? Like, before I came to wrestle, I was resigned that I was going to be an accountant after my college wrestling career. And then Jerry Briscoe comes along and gives me the opportunity to become a WWE superstar. And I take that opportunity and make the most that I can out of it. And, it didn't end in the way that I would have hoped for it to end, of course. It ended in a pretty disappointing way. And, I don't know that I'll ever get the answers that I would like to get around that topic. And it will leave somewhat bad taste, but at the same time, the overall opportunity was, pretty incredible one. And even though we're not teaming together anymore, I got one of my best friends in the world in Otis, in Nico, that won't change, nothing that happens inside of a wrestling ring would ever change the brotherhood or friendship that we have. And so, from that perspective, it's okay, right? And what happens for a reason. My wife is due at the end of September, and and she's getting a big promotion at work. And she's been grinding just like I've been grinding for these last 8 years, and so she needs me to be at home to take care of our 3-year-old and what will be our infant, while she pounds the pavement on a really big opportunity for herself. And I look at it as, well, now I can fully support her, and I can that's something that I get to do. And if I was still wrestling, I would be happy to still be wrestling, of course, but I wouldn't get to do this. We would have to try to find some other way to do that, right? I would probably hire someone to do that, or whatever the case is. And so, that's out of what's been somewhat disappointing situation. I've really worked hard to kind of move some of my personal ego off of my identity as a wrestler and onto my identity as a husband and a father, even before my wife got pregnant again. And so, that's something that I'm really looking forward to having the opportunity to do, even though maybe my wrestling career inside of WWE didn't end as well as I hoped it would.
And I mean, as for your future in wrestling, I mean, I suppose one of the good news is now that we seem to be getting over COVID now, thankfully, and with the amount of promotions out there and indie shows are all picking up now as well. So many big future opportunities for yourself. Like I mentioned earlier, it'd be great to see you in ROH squaring up with EC3, but the likes of Impact, obviously AEW, NWA, MLW, and like I said, all these indie shows where so much potential in the future. And I spoke the same with Wesley Blake, now Weston Blake, and he just seems to be so excited about it.
Yeah, I am as well. Like I just mentioned earlier, I think I'm gonna take a few months there at the end of the year, and I got a couple of signings and things coming up here in the next couple months. But after talking with my wife for a while, it's just something that we need for me to be home through that next 3 or 4 months. And then once 2022 hits, then I can hit the ground running. And I've already booked a couple of shows for myself in 2022. So I'm looking forward to getting back. I feel like I have a little bit of something to prove, obviously. Like I said, and people don't really know me as a singles wrestler very much, right? They just kind of know me as a foil to Otis mostly. And I'm a Division I All-American. I was top 10 heavyweight in America for 3 years in a row. And I think it's important that people understand that that's the base of my character. And when it comes to Levi Cooper, the foundation of Levi Cooper's amateur wrestling, it's where I got my mentality. It's where, it's the reason why I became a pro wrestler in the first place. And, I think there was a big piece of that was put on the back burner as I moved into heavy machinery, and we had a great time. And I hope that we get the opportunity to work together again as a team somewhere. But yeah, in the short term, I'm looking forward to kind of stripping away a lot of the facade and just bringing a lot of my natural persona. That's why I'm going by, Levi Cooper, who I am, my name. You can look me up. You can see what I've done. You can see what I'm about. I have a big interest in self-care and in helping people improve in their self-care, particularly around the topics of, yoga, nutrition, meditation, and basic water consumption. There are things that I'm super passionate about, and things that I'm trying to continually learn about, the topics that I talk about on my Twitch channel, and things that I'm, going to continue to try to put out into the universe and want to use wrestling, to promote these things, because I don't think they're discussed enough. And I think they're, topics that if people really, put 6 months of effort into this topic and got themselves a really good routine, it could be a situation where, in an hour to 90 minutes a day, you're basically taking care of all of the self-care needs that you have in your life and not really neglecting yourself physically, mentally, or, emotionally. Right. And those are things that I did while I was wrestling, and I didn't realize how much I was kind of burning the wick from both ends, and how maybe I lacked presence while I was at home to some extent. So, and I've improved on those things greatly, and I've seen just how much of a profound impact that's had on my life, and kind of just my ability to just feel good about myself on a day-to-day basis, essentially. And yeah, so, these are the things like that I'm excited to kind of have the chains off and be able to, formulate for myself and figure out kind of how I want to put that content out into the world, and, just like Weston, that's exciting, right? Because, particularly for me, all my experience inside of professional wrestling is with WWE, 7.5 years of it. And I'm very grateful and fortunate for those 7.5 years. I learned a lot, I learned so much. I got a formal professional wrestling education essentially in those 7.5 years. And now I look at it as, okay, well, and now the proverbial chains are off, and I have an opportunity to kind of put that education to use in whatever ways that I see fit, and kind of in whatever ways that I want to.
Awesome. Well, I know we're running late, but we're down to a new segment of the show. So you're making the debut on this segment. So one-word association. So I'll give you a name and give us the first word that pops in your head.
All right.
Cool. So we'll start off with the big dog, Roman Reigns.
Polished.
Seth Rollins.
Quick.
Dean Ambrose.
Gritty.
Chad Gable.
Flashy.
Randy Orton.
Smooth.
Mandy Rose.
Gorgeous.
I second that. Becky Lynch.
Strong.
Charlotte Flair.
Explosive.
Matt Carano.
Slimy.
It's a popular answer. Bray Wyatt.
Man, Bray, he is unique.
Dolph Ziggler.
The man.
Big E.
Hilarious.
Miz.
He's, cocky.
Johnny Ace.
He's got presence.
Shane McMahon.
Let's see, Shane. I'll say goofy.
Goofy. And the last one, Vince McMahon.
Powerful.
Powerful. Cool. Well, Levi, it's an absolute pleasure having you on. But before you go, tell everyone where they can find you on Twitch and tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so come check me out on Twitch, Levi Cooper Live. Playing some video games on there and just, chatting about some good stuff. We'll soon be doing some yoga on there, but I'm still working on my own practice a little bit before I bring it out to the world. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Real Levi Cooper. And in my bio that on either of those, you can find my booking email, which is booklevicooper@mail.com. So, if you hear me and you like what you see, you want to bring me to a town near you in 2022, hit a brother up.
Awesome. And yeah, I've seen you've been doing the DDPY, and I had the pleasure of interviewing them recently, and I've downloaded the app. So yeah, I'm going to get on that myself.
Awesome, man. Good luck. It's good stuff. It's I think you'll really like it. It's he's very positive. I mean, obviously, you talk about in the app, not a lot of people, I think, have the kind of presence to permeate a screen, right? But he does have that amount of presence where you can almost you can feel the positive energy even when you're watching him on a screen, and that's pretty special.
Definitely. Cool. Well, Levi, absolute pleasure, and yeah, hopefully we can do this again one day.
Yes, sir. You have a good one, brother.
You too. Thank you. Hey, James here. Thanks for checking out this interview. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, if you hit that big subscribe button, it really does help us out. We're going to try and get to 2,500 subscribers. I think that's our next goal. We're about 300 off, but I know with all your help, I know we can make it. And if you listen to this on podcast form, please again, just hit that subscribe button. If you could leave us a comment or a 5-star rating, it really does help us out. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. It really does mean a lot. So until then, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.